No one ever says no to Ethan Cole, and the ones who do don't last long. The whisper travels faster than the clinking of silverware, slipping between tables dressed in white linen and crystal glasses that catch the warm glow of dim chandeliers. The restaurant hums with quiet wealth, tailored suits, polished heels, voices lowered to a respectful murmur, but the moment the glass doors open, everything shifts. Conversations falter. A fork pauses mid-air. Even the pianist in the corner seems to hesitate for half a beat. Ethan Cole steps inside like he owns not just the room, but the air everyone is breathing. 6'2", broad shoulders wrapped in a charcoal overcoat that probably costs more than most people's rent, his expression unreadable, his presence undeniable. People don't stare. They don't dare. They look down, suddenly fascinated by menus they've already memorized, by phones that haven't buzzed. Because everyone here knows the stories. The ruthless billionaire CEO who built an empire before 40. The man who once shut down an entire division with a single sentence. The one who doesn't forgive mistakes and never forgets them. At the far end of the room, behind the polished bar, a manager leans toward a young waitress, his voice low but urgent. "Not that table," he mutters, eyes flicking toward Ethan as if even looking too long might be dangerous. "I'll handle him." But she doesn't move right away. Lily Carter stands still, fingers curled lightly around her order pad, her sneakers worn at the edges from double shifts and long nights, her apron tied just a little tighter than necessary. She follows the manager's gaze, sees the man everyone is suddenly afraid of, and instead of shrinking, she studies him. Not the tailored coat. Not the reputation. Just the way he stands there, alone, like he expects the world to bend before he even asks. Around her, the staff shifts nervously, someone drops a spoon, someone else whispers, "Don't mess this up." Lily exhales slowly, steadying herself, the noise of the room fading into something distant, like waves pulling back before a storm. She has seen men like this before, not billionaires, not CEOs, but men who think. Power means people disappear when it's convenient. And she made herself a promise a long time ago that she wouldn't be one of those people. The manager reaches for her arm, a last attempt to stop her? "Lily," I said, but she's already stepping away, weaving through the tables with quiet determination, her posture straight, her pace unhurried. Each step feels louder than it should, like the room is watching even if no one dares to turn their heads. Ethan has already taken his seat by the time she reaches the table, his coat draped neatly over the chair, his gaze fixed on the menu like everything here is exactly as expected. He doesn't look up when she stops in front of him. Doesn't acknowledge her presence. Doesn't need to. For a moment, the silence stretches, thick and deliberate, the kind that makes most people stumble, apologize, shrink. But Lily doesn't. She shifts her weight slightly, pen poised, voice calm and steady as she breaks the silence. "Good evening. What can I get started for you?" It's simple. Professional. Nothing more. And yet, for the first time since he walked in, something changes. Ethan's eyes lift, slowly, deliberately, meeting hers with a sharpness that feels like a test all on its own. There's a flicker there of surprise, maybe, or curiosity, but it disappears almost as quickly as it came, replaced by that same cold composure everyone fears. He studies her like he's trying to figure out why she's still standing there, why she hasn't flinched, why she hasn't looked away. The room holds its breath. And somewhere between that silence and her steady gaze, the first crack appears in a story that's always gone exactly the same way, until now. The silence does not break, it tightens, like a wire pulled just a little too far, and for a long second Ethan Cole says nothing at all, his gaze fixed on Lily as if he is recalibrating something he thought he already understood. Then he closes the menu with a soft, deliberate motion and leans back slightly in his chair, his voice low, controlled, the kind that carries without needing to rise. "Do you know who I am?" Around them, the air shifts again, a subtle ripple of tension passing from table to table. A man in a navy suit glances over and quickly looks away, a woman lifts her glass but forgets to drink, and near the bar the manager freezes mid-step, already bracing for what he thinks is about to happen, but Lily does not move, does not blink, her pen still poised above the small notepad as if the question itself is just another item on the menu, and when she answers, her tone is even, almost conversational. "Does that change what you ordered?" The words land softly, but the effect is immediate, like a glass set down a little too hard in a quiet room, and somewhere behind her someone inhales sharply, because that is not how this usually goes. That is not how anyone talks to him, not here, not anywhere, and for a brief moment something flickers across Ethan's face again, not anger, not yet, something closer to surprise edged with something harder to define, then it is gone, replaced by that same measured calm as he studies her more closely now, as if the real conversation has only just begun. "I will have the ribeye," he says finally, his eyes never leaving hers, "medium rare, and a glass of your best red, something from Napa, not too young." Lily nods once, writing it down without hesitation, her handwriting quick and precise. "That will be about 10 minutes for the steak," she replies, "and I will have your wine out in under 2. She turns slightly, ready to step away. But his voice stops her again, and if it is not. It is not loud, but it carries a quiet challenge wrapped in politeness, the kind that has made seasoned executives stumble and seasoned staff apologize before anything has even gone wrong. But Lily only shifts her weight, meeting his gaze again with the same steady calm. "Then I will fix it," she says, simple as that, no apology, no nervous laugh, no attempt to soften the edge of what she is saying, just a statement, clean and direct. And for the first time the corner of Ethan's mouth moves. Not quite a smile, more like the hint of one, quickly hidden. "We will see," he says, and this time when she walks away, she does not feel the weight of the room pressing on her shoulders the way it had when she first stepped toward his table, but she can still feel the eyes, the quiet disbelief, the unspoken question of how long before it all goes wrong. Back at the service station the manager grabs her arm the second she is within reach, his grip tight with panic more than anger. "What are you doing?" he hisses. "Do you have any idea who that is?" Lily pulls her arm free, not sharply, just enough to reclaim her space, her voice low but firm. "Yes, I do," she says, already reaching for the wine glass, polishing it with a clean cloth. "He is a customer." The manager shakes his head, running a hand through his hair. "No, he is not just a customer, he is the customer, and if anything goes wrong, if you say the wrong thing, if he even thinks you are being disrespectful," he stops himself, glancing toward Ethan's table as if the man might hear him from across the room. "I am serious, Lily, let me handle it." But she is already moving again, lifting the bottle of Napa Valley Red, checking the label with practiced ease, her movements calm, controlled, the same way they have been through every double shift and every late night when everything felt like it was one mistake away from falling apart. "I have it," she says quietly, and there is something in her tone that makes him pause, not convinced, but uncertain, and as she walks back toward the table, the deep red of the wine catching the warm light, the room seems to lean in again, waiting, watching, because now it is not just about a meal, it is something else entirely, something unspoken, something that feels like a test even if no one has said the word out loud. And when she reaches him, placing the glass gently on the table, pouring with steady hands, she does not look away, and neither does he, and somewhere in that quiet exchange, the balance of power shifts, just enough to be felt, not yet enough to be understood. The glass is only half full when Ethan lifts it, swirling the deep red slowly, deliberately, watching the way it clings to the sides before it settles again, and Lily notices the detail without staring, the way she notices everything in this room because she has had to learn how to read people long before they speak. He takes a small sip, not rushing, not reacting, just letting the silence stretch again as if time itself answers to him, and somewhere behind her a chair scrapes softly against the floor. A quiet reminder that the entire room is still paying attention even if no one dares to make it obvious. "Not bad," he says finally, setting the glass down with a soft click, and it is not a compliment so much as an acknowledgement, like everything else about him. "Measured, controlled." Lily nods once, already turning slightly to check on another table, but his voice follows her again. "You are not nervous." It is not a question, it is an observation, and this time she pauses, glancing back at him with a calm that does not feel forced. "Should I be?" she asks, and there it is again, that almost invisible shift, like a current moving just beneath the surface. Ethan studies her for a second longer than necessary, as if deciding whether to push further or let the moment pass, and then he leans forward slightly, resting his forearms on the table. "Most people are," he says. "They either try too hard to impress me or they avoid me entirely." His tone is still even, but there is something else beneath it now, something quieter, something that almost sounds like curiosity. Lily considers that for a moment, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of her order pad. Maybe they're just doing what they think they have to, she replies. People act different when they think something is on the line. Ethan's gaze sharpens just slightly at that, not offended, not defensive, but attentive, like he has just heard something worth examining. And you, he asks, what do you think is on the line for you? It is a simple question, but it lands heavier than the others, because it is not about the menu or the service or the restaurant, it is about her, and for a brief moment the noise of the room fades again, replaced by the steady rhythm of her own thoughts, the late rent notices folded in her locker, the extra shifts she picked up this week, the memory of standing in a hallway months ago watching someone she cared about get talked over and dismissed like she did not matter. She exhales slowly, grounding herself back in the present. Just doing my job right, she says, and it is true, but not the whole truth, and somehow he seems to understand that, because he does not press further, not yet. Instead he leans back again, his expression returning to that neutral calm, but the tension between them has changed. It is no longer just pressure, it is something more layered, more deliberate. As if each word is part of a conversation neither of them has fully defined. A few minutes pass, the rhythm of the restaurant picking back up in cautious waves, Lily moving between tables with the same steady pace, checking on guests, refilling water, keeping everything running as if nothing unusual is happening, but every so often her eyes flick back to his table, not out of fear but awareness, and each time she does, she finds him watching, not in a way that feels invasive, but in a way that feels like he is trying to understand something he has not encountered in a long time. When the kitchen bell finally rings, signaling that his steak is ready, she picks up the plate, the heat rising from it in soft waves, the scent of seared meat and herbs cutting through the air, and as she walks it over, she can feel the weight of the moment building again, not from him this time, but from everything around them, the expectations, the unspoken rules, the quiet assumption that eventually something has to give. She sets the plate down in front of him with practiced precision. Ribeye. Medium rare, she says, her voice calm, her posture steady, and then she waits, not stepping back immediately, not hovering either, just present, because she knows this is the moment that matters, the moment where everything that has been building either holds or breaks. And as Ethan picks up his knife, cutting into the steak with a smooth, controlled motion, the room seems to hold its breath once more, waiting to see what happens next. The knife glides through the steak with clean precision, the blade meeting almost no resistance, and for a moment Ethan says nothing, just studying the cut as if even this simple detail matters more than it should. Then he lifts the first bite, pauses just slightly, and tastes it, and the silence that follows feels heavier than before, not because something is wrong, but because everyone is waiting for him to decide if it is. Lily does not move, her posture relaxed but attentive, her hands loosely folded in front of her apron, her expression neutral, not expectant, not anxious, just present. Ethan chews slowly, thoughtfully, and then sets the knife and fork down with the same deliberate care he has shown in every movement tonight. It is not medium rare, he says, his tone calm, almost casual, but the words land like a shift in gravity, subtle but undeniable, and across the room the manager stiffens instantly, his eyes snapping toward them as if he has been waiting for exactly this moment. Lily glances down briefly, just enough to confirm what he already knows. The center is slightly more done than requested, not ruined, not careless, but not exact either. She lifts her gaze back to him, steady as ever. You are right, she says, no hesitation, no excuse, just acknowledgement, and for a split second something unreadable flickers in his eyes again, because that is not the response he is used to. Most people would apologize immediately, overcorrect, rush to fix it before he even has to say more, but she does not move yet. She simply stands there, owning the moment without shrinking from it. I can have the kitchen redo it, she continues, her voice even. Or I can bring you a different cut, your choice. The offer is clear, professional, but it does not carry that undercurrent of fear that usually follows a mistake in front of someone like him, and that difference hangs in the air between them, noticeable even to those pretending not to watch. Ethan leans back slightly, his gaze never leaving her, as if he is weighing something that has very little to do with the steak itself. What would you do, he asks, and again it is not really about the food. Lily takes a small breath, not to steady herself, but to consider the question properly. I would fix it, she says, because it is my responsibility to get it right. There is no rush in her answer, no attempt to impress, just a straightforward truth, and that seems to land differently than anything else she has said so far. Ethan studies her for another long second, then reaches for his glass of wine instead of his fork, taking a slow sip, his expression shifting almost imperceptibly. "Leave it," he says finally, and this time there is something faintly different in his tone, not softer exactly, but less sharp, less testing, as if he has decided that the answer he was looking for has already been given. Lily nods once, accepting the decision without questioning. "All right," she replies, and she turns to step away, but before she can take more than a single step, the manager is already there, his voice tight, controlled, but carrying an edge that makes a few nearby guests glance over despite themselves. "I am so sorry, sir," he says quickly, stepping between them just enough to insert himself into the situation. "We will have that replaced immediately. No charge, of course." Lily stops, her shoulders tensing just slightly as she recognizes what is happening. The attempt to override her, to take control of the situation in a way that feels less about service and more about fear. "He said to leave it," she says, her voice calm but firm, and the manager shoots her a look that is meant to silence her instantly. "I will handle this," he mutters under his breath, but Ethan's gaze shifts from Lily to the manager now, and the room seems to quiet all over again. Because this is the moment everyone has been expecting, the moment where authority reasserts itself, where someone gets corrected, where the balance snaps back into place. But instead of speaking right away, Ethan lets the silence stretch once more, his eyes moving between them, taking in not just the words, but the tension behind them, the unspoken lines being drawn, and when he finally speaks, his voice is calm, measured, but carrying a weight that makes the manager straighten instantly. "I heard her," he says, and just like that, the room shifts again, because this time, the choice is not about a stake, it is about something else entirely, something that is only just beginning to surface. The manager freezes for a fraction of a second, just long enough for the shift in power to become undeniable, his mouth still slightly open from the apology he had rushed to deliver, but now it lingers there unfinished, uncertain, because Ethan has not only heard Lily, he has chosen to acknowledge her, and that is not how this usually unfolds, not here, not with him. "Of course, sir." The manager recovers quickly, forcing a tight smile that does not quite reach his eyes, stepping back half a pace as if distance might somehow correct what just happened, but the tension does not leave. It spreads, quiet and electric, threading through the room as people pretend to return to their conversations while listening even more closely than before. Lily remains where she is for a moment longer, not out of defiance now, but because she understands that something has shifted and rushing away would only break the rhythm of it. Ethan's gaze returns to her, steady, analytical, but no longer as cold as it had been when he first walked in. "You did not argue," he says, almost as if he is thinking out loud rather than addressing her directly. Lily tilts her head slightly, considering the statement. "There was nothing to argue about," she replies, her tone as even as before. "You were right." It is a simple answer, but again it carries that same quiet certainty that does not bend to pressure, and for the first time there is a pause in Ethan's composure that feels less like calculation and more like recognition, as if something about her response has landed deeper than expected. He reaches into the inside pocket of his coat and pulls out a slim black wallet, placing it on the table with deliberate care, the motion drawing just enough attention to make a few nearby guests glance over again. He opens it, slides out a crisp $100 bill, and sets it beside the plate, not pushing it toward her, not presenting it as a reward, just placing it there like another element of the setting. "For your time," he says. And the words are neutral, but the implication is not. Because in rooms like this, money often speaks louder than anything else. It smooths over tension, replaces discomfort, buys silence. Lily's eyes flick briefly to the bill, then back to him, and for a moment she does not move, not out of hesitation, but because she understands exactly what this moment represents. Behind her, the manager shifts again, clearly expecting her to take it, to end whatever this is before it goes any further, but Lily does something else entirely. She reaches forward, not to take the money, but to slide it gently back toward him, her movement calm, controlled, unmistakable. "You can add it to the bill if you would like," she says, "but you do not need to pay extra for me doing my job." The words are not sharp, not confrontational, but they carry a firmness that cuts through the air more cleanly than any raised voice could, and for the second time that evening, the room reacts without meaning to, a subtle shift, a quiet ripple of surprise that moves through the space, because that is not how this works, not here, not with someone like him. Ethan does not touch the bill right away, his gaze fixed on her again, searching, measuring, but this time there is something undeniably different beneath it. Not just curiosity, something closer to respect beginning to take shape, slow but unmistakable. "Most people would have taken it," he says after a moment, his voice lower now, less like a test and more like an observation. Lily shrugs slightly, a small, almost casual gesture that somehow carries more weight than anything else she has done so far. Most people are not me, she replies. And there is no arrogance in it, no attempt to stand out, just a statement of fact, clean and grounded. Ethan lets out a quiet breath, something that might almost be a laugh if it carried more sound, and for the first time since he walked through the door, the edge of his expression softens just enough to be seen, not by the room, but by her, and only her. He closes the wallet, leaving the bill where it is for now, not insisting, not retracting, just letting the moment sit exactly as it is, unfinished, unresolved, and yet somehow more complete than anything that has come before it. Stay, he says after a beat, the word simple, but carrying a different kind of weight now, not an order, not quite a request, something in between, and Lily pauses again, meeting his gaze without hesitation, the noise of the restaurant fading once more into the background as whatever this is continues to unfold, one quiet decision at a time. For a moment, Lily does not move, not because she feels pressured, but because she is deciding whether staying is her choice or his expectation, and that distinction matters to her more than anything else in this room. She glances briefly toward the other tables, the subtle signals of a busy shift still calling her back, a couple waiting for their check, a glass that needs refilling, the quiet rhythm of a job that never really pauses. Then she looks back at him, steady, grounded. I have other tables, she says, not dismissive, not apologetic, just stating a fact, and for a second it seems like the old pattern might return, that he might insist, that the weight of who he is might tilt the moment back in his favor, but instead Ethan nods once, slow, almost thoughtful. Of course you do, he replies, and something in the way he says it feels different, like he is adjusting to a reality where he is not automatically the center of it. Lily gives a small nod in return and steps away, the distance between them breaking the tension just enough for the room to breathe again, but the shift does not disappear, it lingers, subtle but present, threading through everything that follows. As she moves through the restaurant, refilling glasses, delivering plates, her motions are the same as they have always been, efficient, steady, but her awareness is sharper now, not because she is worried, but because she knows she is being watched, not just by him, but by everyone who saw what just happened and does not quite know what to make of it. At the far end of the room, the manager pulls another server aside, whispering quickly, his eyes flicking toward Ethan's table again, clearly unsettled, clearly trying to regain control of something that has slipped just out of reach. Meanwhile Ethan remains seated, his posture relaxed, his attention no longer on the steak in front of him, but somewhere else entirely, his fingers lightly tapping against the edge of the table as if marking time, as if waiting, not for service, but for something less defined. When Lily returns a few minutes later to check on him, it is not rushed, not hesitant, just part of the natural flow of her work. Can I get you anything else? She asks, her tone unchanged, and this time his response comes without delay. Sit, he says, the word quieter now, less like a command and more like an invitation, but still direct, still carrying weight. Lily pauses again, her gaze flicking briefly to the empty chair across from him, then back to his face, and there is a moment, small but significant, where the decision could go either way. Around them the restaurant continues, but softer now, like everything has shifted into the background of this single exchange. For a minute, she says finally, and she pulls the chair out just enough to sit, not fully settling in, just enough to meet him at eye level, and that alone changes something fundamental. The dynamic no longer server and customer, but two people sharing a table, even if only for a moment. Ethan watches her as she sits, not with the detached evaluation he had before, but with something more focused, more present. Why did you not take the money? He asks, the question direct, but not sharp. Lily leans back slightly, resting one hand lightly on the edge of the table, her fingers relaxed, because it was not about the money. She answers, simple, unembellished. He studies her for a second, then another, as if testing the weight of her words against everything he has experienced before. Everything is about the money, he says, not arguing, just stating what has likely been true in most of his world. Lily shakes her head once, small but certain. Not everything, she replies, not if you decide it is not, and that lands differently, not like a challenge, not like defiance, but like a boundary drawn quietly and without apology. Ethan's gaze shifts slightly, not away from her, but inward, as if something she said has connected to something he has not examined in a long time. The noise of the restaurant fades again, the clinking of glasses, the low conversations, all of it becoming distant, because for the first time that evening, the test is no longer his, it is something else entirely, something neither of them fully named, but both beginning to understand. The words linger between them, not loud, not dramatic, but heavy in a way that neither of them can ignore, and for a moment Ethan does not respond, his gaze steady on Lily as if he is trying to reconcile what she just said with everything he has always believed. The quiet hum of the restaurant begins to seep back in around them, but it feels distant, secondary, like the world has shifted slightly off its usual axis. Then a sharp voice cuts through the air from just behind Lily, breaking the moment clean in half. "Lily, what are you doing?" The manager steps forward, his tone controlled but tight, eyes flicking quickly between her and Ethan, clearly aware that something is happening here that he does not understand and cannot control. Lily straightens slightly in her chair, not startled, not defensive, just aware. Taking a minute, she replies calmly, but the manager shakes his head almost immediately, lowering his voice but not enough to hide the edge in it. "This is not the time for that. We have a full house and you are needed on the floor." His gaze sharpens, and there is something more behind it now, something closer to warning, to pressure, the kind that has made others fold before without question. But Lily does not move right away, her attention still partly on Ethan, partly on the situation unfolding around her, because she understands what this moment is becoming, the quiet tension now pulling in more than just the two of them. "I will be back in a minute," she says, her tone steady, but the manager steps closer, lowering his voice further. "No, you will not. You will get back to work right now and I will take over this table, and that is it." The line drawn clearly, the control he is trying to reassert finally spoken out loud. A few nearby guests glance over again, sensing the shift even if they do not know the details, and Lily feels it, the familiar pressure, the expectation to step back, to let someone else handle it, to avoid making things worse. But something in her holds firm, something that has been building long before tonight. She stands slowly, not abrupt, not reactive, just deliberate. "He asked me to stay," she says, and her voice is calm, but it carries, clear enough that it reaches Ethan without needing to be raised. The manager exhales sharply, frustration slipping through the cracks of his composure. "And I am telling you to go," he replies, and now the tension is no longer subtle, it is visible, defined, hanging in the space between authority and choice, between what is expected and what is right. Ethan's gaze shifts between them again, but this time there is no distance in it, no detached observation. He is fully present now, fully aware of what is being said and what is not. The silence stretches, thick and undeniable, and for a brief second it feels like everything could tilt back to the way it has always been, that Lily will step away, that the manager will regain control, that the moment will dissolve into something safer, more predictable. But instead Lily takes a small step back from the table, not toward the manager, not away from Ethan, just enough to create space for her next words. "I am doing my job," she says, and there is no defiance in it, no raised voice, just a quiet certainty that does not ask for permission. The manager opens his mouth to respond, but he does not get the chance, because Ethan moves first, not abruptly, not dramatically, just a subtle shift forward in his chair, his hand resting lightly against the edge of the table. But the effect is immediate, the room quieting once again as if everyone can feel the change before they even see it. "She is," he says, his voice calm, measured, but carrying a weight that cuts through everything else, and just like that, the balance shifts again, not back to what it was before, but somewhere entirely new, somewhere neither of them has fully stepped into yet, and in that space, for the first time that night, the question is no longer who holds the power, but what they are going to do with it. The manager's posture stiffens as if the ground beneath him has shifted, his authority still present but no longer absolute, his eyes flicking toward Ethan with a mix of confusion and forced composure. "Sir, I assure you, I can handle this situation," he says carefully, choosing each word as if it might determine the outcome. But Ethan does not look at him right away, his attention still on Lily, as if the rest of the room has temporarily ceased to exist. "I did not ask you to handle it," he replies calmly, and the simplicity of the statement lands harder than anything louder could have. The manager's mouth tightens slightly, the faintest sign that he is no longer certain where he stands. A few steps away, a couple at another table glance at each other, sensing that something unusual is unfolding, not dramatic, not explosive, but quietly decisive. Lily remains still for a moment, aware that this is no longer just about her, that the moment has expanded beyond a single table into something that touches everyone in the room, something about respect, about boundaries, about who gets to speak and who is expected to stay silent. She takes a slow breath, grounding herself, then shifts her weight slightly, not retreating, not advancing, simply holding her place. The manager exhales through his nose, trying to regain footing. "Lily, go check on table 12, he says, this time softer, but more pointed, a direct instruction meant to close the conversation without escalating it further. But before she can respond, Ethan finally turns his gaze toward him, and the shift is immediate, unmistakable, the kind that quiets a room without a single raised voice. "You are asking her to leave because she did her job correctly," he says, his tone even, but carrying a clarity that cuts through the layers of politeness. The manager hesitates, just for a fraction of a second, but it is enough to expose the truth beneath the surface. "I am asking her to follow procedure," he replies, carefully neutral, but it does not quite land the way he intends, because now the room is listening differently, not just to what is being said, but to what it means. Ethan leans back slightly in his chair, his expression composed, but his focus sharp. "Procedure is meant to support the work, not replace it," he says, and there is something in the way he frames it that shifts the entire context, from a simple workplace correction to something more fundamental, something about how people are treated when no one thinks it matters. Lily watches the exchange quietly, not inserting herself, not stepping away either, because she understands that this is not about her speaking now, it is about what happens when someone else does. The manager glances around briefly, as if hoping the room itself might offer an escape from the moment, but it does not. The silence holds, steady and expectant, and for the first time since the situation began. He looks uncertain, not weak, not incapable, just unprepared for a version of authority that does not rely on pressure alone. Ethan's gaze shifts back to Lily, softer now, but no less focused. "You said you would fix it," he reminds her, referring to the steak, but the words carry more than that now. They echo through everything that has happened. Lily nods once, understanding both the literal and the underlying meaning. "I will," she says. And without waiting for further direction, she reaches for the plate, lifting it with steady hands, her movements calm, deliberate, as if nothing about the past few minutes has unsettled her, the action itself simple, but in this moment, it feels like a resolution, not an end, but a step forward, a choice made without fear or hesitation. As she turns toward the kitchen, the room exhales in a way it had been holding back, conversations beginning to rise again. The quiet tension easing just enough to allow normalcy to return, but not entirely. Because something has changed, something subtle but lasting. Ethan watches her walk away, his expression thoughtful, not satisfied, not finished, just aware that whatever this is, it is not over yet, and for the first time that evening, the question is not what she will do next, but what he will. The kitchen doors swing closed behind Lily with a soft thud, muting the dining room into a distant hum, but her movements remain steady as she places the plate on the counter, speaking clearly to the line cook without urgency. "Ribeye, medium rare, refire please." No blame, no explanation, just a correction, clean and direct, and as the steak goes back onto the heat, she takes a brief second to breathe, not out of stress, but to reset, to return to the rhythm she knows, because whatever just happened out there, her job still matters, the timing still matters, the details still matter, and when she steps back through the doors a few minutes later, the room has shifted again, not in noise, but in tone. Conversations have resumed, glasses clink softly, but the energy is different, more aware, more measured, as if everyone sensed that something important had passed through and left a trace behind. Ethan remains at the table, exactly where she left him, but not exactly the same, his posture relaxed, his attention no longer scanning the room but settled, focused. When she approaches with the new plate, the heat rising in gentle waves, she places it in front of him with the same calm precision as before. "Ribeye, medium rare," she says, and this time when he cuts into it, there is no pause, no test drawn out for effect, just a simple motion, a glance at the center, and a nod so slight it might be missed by anyone not watching closely. "This is correct," he says, and the words are not dramatic, but they land with a quiet finality, like a box checked, a standard met. Lily gives a small nod in return. "Thank you," she replies, already beginning to step back, but his voice follows her once more, not stopping her, just reaching her. "Lily," he says, and the way he uses her name feels different, more grounded, less like a label and more like recognition. She pauses, turning slightly back toward him, and for a moment neither of them speaks, the silence no longer tense, no longer testing, just present. Then he reaches again for his wallet, but this time the motion is slower, more deliberate. He pulls out a card instead of cash, a simple black card with no visible logo, no obvious display, just weight, just presence. He places it on the table between them, not sliding it forward, not pushing it into her space, just setting it there. If you ever decide that what you do should be valued somewhere else, he says, his tone even, but carrying something more sincere than anything he has said all evening, call that number. Lily looks at the card, then back at him, her expression unreadable for a moment, not surprised, not impressed, just considering. The room around them continues, but it feels quieter again, as if this final exchange is something only they are meant to hear. And if I do not, she asks, not challenging, just clarifying. Ethan leans back slightly, a faint hint of something almost like a smile touching the edge of his expression. Then stay exactly where you are, he says, and keep doing it the same way. And there is no condescension in it, no hidden agenda, just acknowledgement, the kind that cannot be bought. Lily nods once, taking the card, not quickly, not hesitantly, just accepting the possibility without letting it define her. I will think about it, she says, and the words feel balanced, equal, not a promise, not a refusal, just honest. Ethan picks up his glass again, taking a slow sip, his gaze no longer searching, no longer testing, just present in a way it had not been when he first arrived. And as Lily turns to return to her other tables, the distance between them no longer feels like a divide, but a space filled with something quieter, something earned. The manager watches from a distance, still uncertain, still adjusting, but no longer stepping in, because whatever needed to be said has already been said. And as the night continues, the restaurant returns to its rhythm, but not quite the same, because somewhere between a question and an answer, between pressure and choice, something real took shape, something that did not rely on status or fear, but on something far simpler, far harder to fake. And for the first time that evening, Ethan Cole finishes his meal without testing anything at all, because he already found what he came for, and it was not on the menu.